With you, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus began to reproach the cities in which most of his deeds of power had been done because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the deeds of power done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago, wearing sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, on the day of judgment, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon than for you. As for you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to the heavens? No, you will be brought down to Hades. For if the deeds of power done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you that on that day of judgment, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom than for you. The Gospel of the Lord. There are three instances in the Gospels where Jesus was pronouncing woes. Woes is not really that Jesus was angry, but he was just giving what is called prophetic warnings to the people that he pronounced woes on. The first place is right here in Matthew 11, when Jesus pronounced woes on three cities: Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. Jesus also pronounced woes on the Pharisees and the Scribes. So, woe to you, Pharisees, woe to you, Scribes. And Jesus also pronounced woes on Jerusalem when he entered Jerusalem and the people did not recognize him as the Son of God. Now, one interesting thing about these prophetic woes from Jesus is historically, all these places suffered consequences of extinction. When we check modern day history, the cities of Chorazin, the city of Bethsaida, the city of Capernaum are no more today. They are in ruins today. They don't exist. If you went to Israel, you still see Tiberias, you see Nazareth, you see Galilee, but you don't hear of Bethsaida, you don't hear about Capernaum or Chorazin. They are not on the map anymore. It was the same kind of woe that we see with Jesus when when Jesus pronounced the woes on the Pharisees and the Scribes. Today, they are no longer in existence. That movement died out, and they're not there. It was the same thing when Jesus entered Jerusalem and he pronounced woe on the temple in Jerusalem. Today, that temple is also extinct. So what was Jesus actually saying about these three cities, Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum? These three cities in Bible study are called the evangelical triangle of the ministry of Jesus. The three cities are a triangle, and every time Jesus was doing his ministry in the province of Galilee, he was either in any of these three cities. And when we studied the four Gospels, we found out that three of his disciples are from Bethsaida. Peter, Andrew are from Capernaum. That's where he called them from. And Philip is from Bethsaida. Now, these were the places where Jesus performed most of his miracles. Say, for instance, when the whole city gathered in the house of Peter's mother-in-law, it was in Capernaum that he performed that miracle in the presence of the whole city. People gathered in front of the house. It was in Bethsaida, which was a fishing town, that he performed and opened the eyes of a blind man, which was one of the things that the Messiah was expected to do. So our text today says most of his deeds of power were done in these three cities, but they did not repent. And so Jesus now compares them. He says, "Woe to you, Bethsaida, for if these deeds of power had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented." You know, again, Tyre and Sidon are not Israeli cities. They're not Israelite cities. They are in the present day Lebanon. Tyre and Sidon were Phoenicians. And historically, Phoenicians were business people. In the Old Testament, they were so savvy in business that they were no longer trading in merchandise. They entered Israel, they came to Judah, and they were capturing Israelites and selling them to the Greeks as slaves. That was what the Phoenicians were doing for business. So the prophet Isaiah and the prophet Ezekiel was warning them that, look, if you continue doing these things, it's going to have repercussion. And up till today, the Israelites are still avenging because of those things that the people of Lebanon did to them up till today. If you see some of the bombs that are dropping in Lebanon, in Tyre and Sidon, that fight has been ongoing even in the Old Testament. So when Jesus says, "Woe to you," it's a prophetic warning to say, if you don't repent, the repercussion, the consequences can be there. And so Jesus says to Capernaum, you know, because Capernaum was where, when Jesus left home, when he left Nazareth, he moved to Capernaum. That's where he lived. He lived there. And so he says, "You, Capernaum, do you think you will be lifted to heaven?" Because Jesus lived there, they saw him as the magician. They said, "Oh, if he's the Son of God, then we don't have to pray. When he went to their synagogue, they said, oh, we know you. If you are from heaven, then we are okay. Then we don't have to go to church. We don't have to say prayers. We don't have to do anything. We are saved already. And so he says, do you think that you are just going to make heaven easily? He says, do you think you will be exalted to heavens? And he says, no. You are going to go down to Hades. And then he also compared Capernaum to Sodom. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah in the book of Genesis. They also are extinct. The people of Sodom. There are no people from Sodom today. That whole city was burnt down. And Capernaum also is just in ruins today. Archaeologists go there looking for historical facts. But Jesus, more than anything else, says what is important in spirituality is to recognize real presence of the Son of God. Jesus came down, John chapter 1 verse 15 says the word became flesh and dwells among us. That verse is the summary of the whole spirituality of attending Mass, receiving communion, saying prayers. If any Christian recognizes that alone, that's what you call faith. If you say you have faith that the Son of God came down and is present among us. The people of Chorazin, the people of Bethsaida, the people of Capernaum, the Son of God was living with them. He was present in their synagogue, but they did not accept him. That can also happen to us. The number one teaching of the church, the Catholic Church, the number one teaching, the reason why we celebrate the Mass is the real presence of Jesus. That's the number one. Every other thing, Vatican II calls it the summit of Christian worship. It says it is the highest point of Christian worship. That's why we bow. That's why we kneel. The things we do during Mass, it says he is present, body, soul, and divinity. The sin of the people of Bethsaida, Chorazin, and Capernaum is that he is present there, living there. It says the triangle of his ministry. And it says most of his deeds of power were done there, but they did not accept Jesus. They did not. Our prayer is, let us not be like those people of Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. Let us recognize the real presence of Jesus with us every day. That's why we come here. That's why we do adoration. That's why we do Mass. Every other things, in Latin, the Vatican II document, Sacrosanctum Concilium, the number one document of the Second Vatican Council, calls it fons et conlens. Fons et conlens. Fons and conlens. Fons means source. Fons in Latin, the source. And conlens means the summit. It is the beginning. If you took away that, it says there is no liturgy. There's no liturgy. So that real presence is a very serious matter for us. That was the sin of Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. not recognizing divinity among them. He's present, but they did not recognize him.